The areas that we generally really want to take a look at that are somewhat critical as part of this process is, of course, the interior living spaces, and sometimes not a lot of that is accessible, but we do our best. The attic cavity or attic cavities, if there's any void above the ceiling areas, the living space area, is definitely a critical area we'd like to take a look at. Okay. And then, of course, garage, whether it's attached or detached, typically we want to look at that area.
Welcome to the Selling Sandoval podcast, where we dive deep into the world of real estate in sunny California. I'm your host, Victoria Sandoval, and I'm thrilled to have you join me as I sit down with top-notch professionals, market analysts, and influential leaders who have mastered the art of closing deals. Together, we'll explore the ever-evolving market trends, debunk myths, and empower you with the tools to negotiate like a pro. So whether you're a buyer, seller, or agent seeking inspiration, this podcast is your key to unlocking real estate success in California. This is the Selling Sandoval podcast. I'm Victoria Sandoval, and I'm excited to embark on this journey with you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Selling Sandoval. Today, I am excited to introduce to you our termite inspector. He's an inspector that we've worked with for the past few years, and he's very, very good. Steve Nemosack. I said that right?
You said that right.
Yay,
very good.
Yay. So I asked him over because, as a homeowner, we get a lot of questions about in regards to termite inspections. And as a buyer, especially if you're a VA buyer, they require termite inspection and clearance in order to get financing. So I figured, why not have him come down and explain the whole process? So I wanted to ask you, what's the process not process, but what are the responsibilities of a termite inspector?
Well, it could be quite varied, but first of all, I wanted to say thank you for having me out here on your podcast this morning. I appreciate the opportunity to reach out to your client base as well. Yeah, but the termite inspection itself is actually fairly straightforward. The inspection is primarily a visual assessment of the structure, and depending upon the inspector's style and the amount of commitment that inspector is willing to make during that process, the inspector will sometimes, I use a number of different types of probing devices to, so I can actually touch the areas that I'm looking at, which are in most cases out of my reach. So I use a number of different types of probes that expand. I guess the best way to explain that would be to, if you've ever seen somebody cleaning a pool, they're using a large pole that they can expand out, and it gives them opportunity to reach out 15, 20 feet. So I can actually reach up into the second story eave, which is typically a place where we find a lot of termite damage, and note that in my inspection report, basically. But so the areas that we generally really want to take a look at that are somewhat critical as part of this process is, of course, the interior living spaces, and sometimes not a lot of that is accessible, but we do our best. The attic cavity or attic cavities, if there's any void above the ceiling areas, the living space area, is definitely a critical area we'd like to take a look at. And then, of course, garage, whether it's attached or detached, typically we want to look at that area. And then in many areas of San Diego, I'm sure most people realize this because you're living in a home that's on a raised foundation, and there's a myriad of issues that occur that are out of sight, that are somewhere between the earth and your structure, your home. So, and those areas sometimes can get a little tricky, a little difficult to get access to as well. But you just have to take it slow, pace yourself. The process usually takes roughly around an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Okay. What are some, what's the process typically? What are the steps involved when somebody says, I want to order a home inspection, and you go out there and you inspect, and from there, when you find infestation, what's the process to get rid of the termites?
Again, great question. Can be very complicated. It really just depends on the level of infestation, where the infestation, whatever it is that's eating the house, I should say, where that's located, and usually a primary recommendation based on how accessible that area is. One of the things that happens quite often is that decades can go by in cases between the time the last inspection was done and the most current inspection is being completed. So that gives a lot of time for annual termite migrations and infestations to get embedded in the structure and cause a fairly significant damage related issue. So in most cases, the treatment recommendations are going to be based on how accessible the infestation is, where it's embedded. You see a lot of houses covered up with a fumigation procedure, essentially. And that's really considered the gold standard in our industry. Okay. Most of our customers, they hire us. They know they're going to pay good money to resolve the problem. They want the problem resolved, and they really do not want to have another conversation, hopefully for a relatively long period of time. So if a fumigation is warranted, we're going to call it, and then the process is just really a matter of logistics planning. There's some preparation involved, and typically in most homes, that process is going to take about an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Okay.
It just really depends on the size of the home. There's things like food items that need to be consumed or double bagged in a special type of process that we give some direction on. But besides fumigation, we do a lot of localized treatment. We do a lot of treatment using heat or thermal eradication.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question.
That's considered a little bit more from the standpoint of customers that are looking for something that's in their mind more environmentally friendly.
Right.
Heat treatment, generally, we're not using chemical per se, but we usually will pair the heat treatment with localized treatment. Okay. A specific type of a pesticide that will be, or termiticide that will be used to sort of complement that heat treatment procedure in order to make it more effective, to increase that efficacy, if you will.
Okay, perfect. So what about, are there different types of termite, and what attracts termite? I know wood attracts termite, but are there certain like weather conditions or just in general, what so that homeowners know what attracts them and what can they do to prevent severe infestation?
Well, generally speaking, in our region, it never freezes. Very rarely does San Diego is under snow. So because of that, we live in an environment that will support almost every type of bug. And when it comes to wood destroying organisms, which obviously termite falls into that category, the two primary, I would say, daily occurrences that will come up in an average inspection report are drywood termite infestations and subterranean termite infestations. But in addition to that, we also find a lot of just water related damage, fungus and dry rot related. And that it's not going to necessarily crawl around like a termite does. It falls into a classification of wood destroying organisms, which is something that the state requires that we document if it's located on the property. But so in addition to those two, drywood termite, subterranean termite, there's a lot of other things that eat wood. And we typically will find a lot of, this time of year, a lot of carpenter bee infestations. And, if you've ever been outside on a nice, warm, sunny San Diego afternoon, and you see something flying through the air and it's getting closer and closer, and all of a sudden it feels like it's a little miniature, hovering craft coming at you, that's very likely could be a carpenter bee, and it's just trying to find its nest.
Oh, wow.
So they actually can cause some pretty severe damage if an infestation gets really embedded in the structure as well. But carpenter ants are a fairly common issue as well. A little bit different type of issue, and it requires different types of treatment as well. But in addition to that, again, beetle infestations are really common in this area. A lot of those problems get imported from wood, species of wood that are brought into like a custom home development. And sometimes we'll discover that after the fact, right before the keys are being handed off to the new homeowner. All of a sudden that powder post beetle infestation will start to emerge, and people really flip out, and I don't blame them.
So what's the difference between a pest inspection and a termite inspection? What does each, we know what a termite inspection covers, but does the pest inspection also cover termite infestation, or is it just pest? And what is in? what do you look for when you're inspecting for any type of pest infestation?
Right. So yeah, we're kind of delineating between two different types of inspections. Basically, a wood destroying organism or a termite inspection is a document that's created, and it's considered a wood destroying organism inspection report.
Right.
A pest inspection report can involve everything from rodent related concerns and issues, and or any other type of crawling insect, if you will, like ants and spiders and silverfish and everything else that kind of plagues our homes these days. But while we're doing that inspection, we're also assessing the property for conducive conditions on both types of inspections. So if, say, a customer has a serious issue with a rodent-related issue, or they're just hearing noises in the ceiling, we need to really determine how they're getting in, or if there's a natural bridge allowing a rodent to actually cross over from the ground level, using the tree as a natural bridge to get onto the roof line. And then rodents will scour a roof line until they can find an opening almost the size of a dime, the diameter of a dime. And if they can determine that perhaps there's a void behind that opening, they will chew their way into your house.
Wow.
And start nesting.
How do we, as homeowners, prevent that from happening? Is there any type of treatment that we can get, or that homeowners can get, that can prevent them from starting to dig? Is there maybe a foul smell that you guys could spray that would just make it very unattractive to them?
Well, it's a pretty a practical approach to helping to prevent that in the first place. Some of the key things really literally would be to work with your landscaper, or if you're up to climbing a ladder and trimming back the tree away from the roof line, so that you're maintaining, if it's possible, a good solid 4-foot distance between the tree, the limb of the tree, and the roof line. Unfortunately, rodents could be really difficult problem to get rid of, and they're survivalists. They will attempt to jump from a tree to a house, slide off the roof, fall 10 feet, recover, go back up the tree, try it again, until they accomplish their task. So other than eliminating those natural bridges, if you will, a regular routine assessment, if you suspect that your neighbor has an issue, definitely give us a call. Any of our inspectors can come out and check that area for you.
Right,
and
they
make
jump
recommendations.
They jump from property to property. So if you see that there's a tent on your block, you definitely want to get Lloyd Termite Pest Control out there.
That's an indication, yes, that there's an issue. And it's really interesting sometimes in certain parts of San Diego, most homeowners realize that their property is one of the largest investments they maintain, and they're willing to put the maintenance dollars into correcting these types of problems. Having the house fumigated when it's warranted. But it seems like there's always that one homeowner in every neighborhood that more or less has that mentality that, we'll just let the house fall down around us because we're going to eventually give it to the kids anyway. They very generous folks for sure, but they can end up being a problem. They can harbor a problem for everybody else in the neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
Especially this time of year when drywood termites are swarming. You'll sometimes see a huge amount of insects flying and something that almost resembles a cloud of insects, and they're attracted to light. So if this happens in the early morning or late at night, sometimes you'll see a porch light that's just surrounded by a whole bunch of insect activity. It's very likely that could either be, typical moths or whatever, but it's also likely it could be termites.
So how often should somebody have their home evaluated by an inspector?
If you live in an area that has a high propensity for termite infestation, we usually recommend, and that's actually, let me stop what I'm saying there. That's almost every place in San Diego.
Okay, I was going to ask what.
It's a good idea to actually have us come out and assess on an annual basis.
Okay.
Yeah. If there's a lot of termite related services being provided in your neighborhood, that's a pretty clear indication that it's likely that you might also have an issue. And we always, appreciate the opportunity to inform the customer that we believe that we caught this issue early, and that there doesn't appear to be any either just cosmetic damage or once the termite infestation gets embedded, if it stays there for a decade or 2 or 3 decades, it can start to cause some structural damage.
And what's the warranty like? So let's just say we get a buyer that purchases a home. They tented the property in order for them to for financing to pass, and they go through Lloyd's termite company, and you guys provide a free and clear termite report. What is the warranty on that? How long do you guys guarantee that the property will be free and clear of termites after tenting?
Yeah, I would say industry standards typically a year. Lloyd's offers a 4-year warranty.
Wow.
So, and that simply means that we're going to be by your side, standing as your centennial, so that there's an issue down the road. The warranty includes a routine inspection on an annual basis, or if you see something on the property, if the homeowner sees something, because we can't be there every single day, call us out to the property. If there's appears to be a reinfestation, all of the treatment processes are included at no charge for the next 4 years. So it kind of helps to provide some peace of mind, because fumigation, you're making an investment in your property. It's kind of nice to know that we're going to be around to continue to service the property for you.
Okay. And then for realtors out there, this question's pretty common. Realtors often ask me, what's the difference between Section 1 and Section 2 on the termite inspection report?
Okay. Question that's posed quite often, and typically by the homeowner, because most real estate agents have already gone through the process of what the termite inspection process is all about and that sort of thing. But generally speaking, a Section 1 related finding that comes up in the inspection report, the WDIR, that is indication of a live infestation or active infestation or evidence of damage associated with termites, dry rot, fungus, any other type of wood destroying organism like beetles and the aforementioned carpenter ants or carpenter bees, that sort of thing. So all the Section 1 related issues, generally speaking, are recommendations that typically are required to be corrected.
So current infestation and repair work that's needed.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the Section 2 related items are primarily all of the conducive conditions, if you will, and those are conditions that would lead to the potential infestation. So things like where homeowners are doing some heavy landscaping or re-landscaping, and the landscaper unknowingly is filling up those planters full of amendments or topsoil, and all that topsoil is drifting into the structure, and it's coming in contact with the wood siding, right, or a metal screed that might be at the base of the concrete stucco wall, which would essentially create a natural bridge for all kinds of bugs to get from the earth into the base of the wall, including termites. Right. So also water staining, water leaks are considered Section 2.
Okay.
Earth to wood contact points, such as a wooden deck that might be literally built right on the grade. In some cases, do-it-yourself homeowner doesn't really want to go through all the steps of pouring concrete or pouring footings, elevating the substructure of the deck up off the earth in order to keep the deck, maintain that clearance. So there's air passage or air that moves underneath that structure and helps to keep the base of the deck dried out. Okay,
perfect. So basically Section 2 is preventative, is what you're saying.
Primarily, right? Yeah, they're correctable, preventative type of conditions that can lead to infestation.
Now, anytime a report is created, there's record of it, right? So for instance, if a buyer is looking to purchase a home and they want to check to see if a termite inspection has been currently, an inspector's been out recently, where can they look? Where can they research to see if there's an inspection on the property as of recently?
Well, I'm not quite sure about this from a legality point, but once an inspection report is generated, published, if you will, it's at some point it becomes public record. And most consumers can actually go to the State Structural Pest Control Board in Sacramento and request copies of inspection reports and treatment reports, fumigation reports that have been performed on that particular property. In most cases, you can reach across the aisle to another realtor, maybe a listing agent that listed the property previously, and a lot of times that information is readily available.
Okay, perfect. Well, you answered a lot of our questions. I appreciate you coming by. Quick, okay, one last question.
Yeah, any more, throw them at me.
If somebody wanted to order a home inspection on their property, what do you guys charge, and who do they contact?
Well, if it's a real estate related inspection and the realtor calls the inspector directly, most of my colleagues will waive the fees.
Okay.
Because it's just a invitation opportunity to do business.
Right.
Home inspectors, they charge their own separate fees essentially. But if you reach out to our office and ask for the area rep, that's one option. If you establish a good rapport with a real estate agent, typically the real estate agent is going to call you directly, and we're more than happy to take the business if it's or accept that invitation, I should say, if it's within a reasonable driving distance. Most of my colleagues will go just about anywhere their listing agents have property that is going up for sale. Okay. And just one thing I wanted to point out, it's always a really good idea. Most people like the idea of proactive approach to dealing with problems before you start negotiating the sale of the home. Right. We love it. We love our realtors that call us way in advance of listing the property, or do they even put for sale signs in front of houses anymore? Because I don't think that it's really necessary, is it?
We still do. Okay. I mean, property's still all over the World Wide Web, but we still do.
Right. Yeah. I always thought that was funny. It was like I could remember so many times where I was on the property doing the inspection, and the guy drives up in the truck getting ready to plant the sign in the front yard, and he said, we don't really need your services because the house is already sold.
Yeah.
Oh, that poor guy.
Oh yeah, properties sell very, very quickly nowadays. So you order a sign and postage, sign and post, and by the time they get out there, the home usually is sold. But they're usually out there within a day or two. So.
Right. So if someone does want to get directly in touch with me, you can reach out to our customer service at 1-800-BAD-BUGS.
I love that.
Yeah, or just you can call me directly, or drop me an email, text me a message.
Perfect. What's your email address?
It's steve.nemosack@lloydpest.com.
And how do you spell Nemosack?
Nemosack is spelled Nemoseck.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Thanks to the audience for listening in. If you guys have any questions, you have his contact information. And if you have any comments, questions for me, go ahead and click on the link below or comment below. All right. Until next time, guys. Bye. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Selling Sandoval podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and stay tuned for more valuable insights and practical tips. Remember, whether you're a buyer, seller, or an aspiring real estate agent, the Selling Sandoval podcast is your trusted companion in navigating the dynamic California real estate landscape. Until next time, keep dreaming big and making those real estate dreams a reality. This is Victoria Sandoval, signing off from the Selling Sandoval podcast, wishing you success and happiness in all of your real estate endeavors.